Oh, dear. Hello, it's the BPM man here. Um, what you doing? Stuff, BPM stuff. I'm BPM stuff, etc. So I thought I would do something a bit different today. Um, I thought it would be fun to go through all of 2021 and talk about all the albums I listened to that came out this year. Most of them. There's a couple I probably forgot. There's a couple I didn't include. So I've got a list on my phone, um, of just a Google Doc of everything, and I've done it not in the order I listened to it in, but in the order these albums came out. So January, February, March, and so on. So there's stuff here I only listened to maybe last week, 2 weeks ago, that came out in October. There's stuff that I listened to like 3 months ago that came out in January. But yeah, I just thought it'd be fun to do a little run through and just get some album recs out there. I'll probably do a proper top 10 albums, top 10 songs, I think, as well, maybe top 20. But yeah, just thought it'd be fun to have a bit of a comfy time. So let's begin, shall we? So 2021 albums. First up, I've got Jazmine Sullivan, Heaux, which yeah, this came out in January. Um, I was very late to the party on this one. I only heard this, I think, probably the start of this month, just when it started coming up in best of the year. I hadn't listened to it. I remember seeing it come up because it was early in the year, though. I hadn't bothered to sort of seek it out. But yeah, this was really really good. This is like a sort of feminist inspired EP. Well, they said it's an EP, but it's an 8 track thing or 10 tracks. So I mean, it's kind of closer to an album, and it features these like spoken word bits and then a song in between. So it'll be like spoken word, a song, spoken word, a song. But it's really good. It's sort of talking about like sexual liberation, talking about expressing yourself physically, and how just sort of the conversation we only tend to see from the man's point of view. But like there are women are allowed to talk about these things as well. It reminds me a lot of sort of Janelle Monáe, or Tiana Taylor, and maybe Lauren Hill a little bit. But I think anyone who's made sort of hip hop R&B style stuff is always going to sort of have a Lauren Hill aspect here, since she's so influential. Pick Up Your Feelings, which I think is the second song in the album, second or third, is whoa, it's so great. It might be one of my favorite songs of the year. If you don't want to listen to the full album, as I recommend, there's stuff here I'm going to recommend massively. There's stuff here that you could give it a miss. I'll tell you to, don't you worry. And obviously, I would love the discourse of you telling me whether or not you like it or hate it. But definitely listen to Pick Up Your Feelings if you're going to listen to one song from this. The reverse piano and all is, oh, it's great. Other standout tracks, The Other Side, it's really nice. Girl Like Me, I think it's called, or Girls Like Me, or something like that. It's one of the best vocal performances I've heard in a while. It is amazing. Again, sort of Tiana Taylor, just that real, heartfelt, great sort of not raspy vocal, but I guess just passionate. But this is a great album. This is a really really good album. Would definitely recommend. Next up, we've got Cheater by the band Pom Poko. I think it's pronounced Pom Poko. I think they're Norwegian from memory. Um, I apologize if you're not. I'm pretty sure they're Norwegian. But this was like a really fun sort of. I was gonna say post punk, but it's not really. It's kind of got all the elements of like heavy dissonant rock music, but it's way more fun than that. Kind of like Parquet Courts, Parquet Courts. This is really good though. This was really nice as well. The first song kind of sums up, again, another one I would just check out the first song on the album, and you'll either immediately go, oh, this is my thing, I really like this, or no. Some of the tracks sound a bit samey, is the only real downside. It's one of these albums where you can tell this is how they sound live, like apart from some of the guitar bits being double tracked and it being a bit better recorded and stuff. It's pretty much how they probably sound live. But yeah, if you're a fan of big fuzzy dissonant rock riffs, really good drumming, and the vocalist is amazing. So if that sounds good to you, check this out. Not one of the top albums of the year, but definitely a lot of fun. A lot of fun. This I came back to quite a few times. Next up, we've got Carolyn Shaw with So Percussion, but also Dawn Upshaw and Gilbert Kalish with the album Narrow Sea. So this is like a minimalist piano type thing with So Percussion. Do a lot of sort of Steve Reich and so on, sort of percussive tunes. They're a collective from New York, I want to say. There's going to be a lot of me talking out my ass here, so I apologize. I'm pretty sure they're like a New York jazz, percussive, classical, This is another one of these ones where calling it an album feels a bit strange. There's quite a lot of these sort of neoclassical ones releasing pieces as albums, which I suppose, at the end of the day, we used to do that, or say we. There's a lot of jazz music that was released on vinyl that was obviously, sold as a sort of side A and side B, but you don't really think of jazz as like an album. It's just sort of two tunes. But I think it was Duke Ellington was famous because he sold out and started writing jazz tunes that would be like 5 minutes on one side, 5 minutes on the other, so they'd fit a vinyl single. Or you'd write like 30-minute pieces that have an exact, or 40 minutes say, and have an exact 20-minute marker in the end for a side A and side B. So that was him kind of taking advantage of the technology, But sorry, so this doesn't really feel like an album in a lot of ways. It's mainly just Narrow Sea Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, Part 4. I can't remember what the last track's called. But this was really nice if you're a fan of sort of minimalist, percussive, classical style music. But it's got sort of vocal. Carolyn Shaw, her vocals are on this, and I think Dawn Upshaw as well. But yeah, it's sort of minimalist piano, marimba, just percussion. Just worth a listen for something if you're looking for something nice, something pleasant. Part 1 and the piano kicks in is great. Part 2 was really nice. I really like at the end, the last track, Taxidermy. That was the name of it. I just looked it up. I really like in that last track as well. It has references back to her old music. She starts talking about the detail. Actually, I'll get the quote. The detail of the pattern is movement, which is from her partita for 8 Voices that she won the Pulitzer for like 10 years ago. Carolyn Shaw's great. Big recommend her. Her stuff's really nice, and a lot of different stuff. Some more pop leaning, some more sort of percussive, classical, and so on, vocal arrangements. And then she even worked with Kanye on Life of Pablo. She reworked some of his 808s and Heartbreaks tracks. Say You Will with her vocals on it, basically, as these sort of loops. And I know that's 808, but on Life of Pablo, she's the bit at the end of Father Stretch My Hands Part 2. The How Can I Find You vocoder, I believe is all her. But yes, good album, good stuff. So that's all for January. Moving on to February. Next up, February, the second month of the year. I was going to say Gregorian calendar, but isn't it Julian calendar? I think it's both, but one of them's got like leap years. So first up in February, we've got Black Country New Roads. For the first time, I could not remember the name of the album. I could have sworn it was their self-titled album for ages. I would just go like, oh yeah, Black Country New Roads self-titled record. Yeah, it's not. I don't know where I got that from. So this is one of the ones where it's quite funny. I think like long-term listeners of this band might have been mildly disappointed because a lot of these tracks had appeared on previous EPs. They reworked some of their songs. I know infamously Sunglasses was reworked massively. But I went into this album completely blind. I hadn't listened to anything except, so I had heard nothing. I just heard that there was this really good band. So I went, oh, I'll stick them on. And yeah, I loved it. I think it's a really, really good album. So I now listen to, because I heard all these versions the first time, when I hear like the old Sunglasses version, where a lot of people are like, oh man, that was better, or whatever, or it had more impact, the vocals and lyrics were better, or whatever. they're like cover versions for me. They're almost like live versions, but I've heard you know, the album version is the original for me. Yeah, so like Black Midi, this is like the the new era of post rock that's sort of massively influenced by Slint, which is a good thing because Slint are the best. Slint are one of these bands that if someone says to me, Slint is my favorite band ever, or I think Slint is the best band ever, I kind of go, yeah, good take, good opinion. Uh, Obviously it's subjective, but Slint rock, man. Slint are great. But yeah, it's sort of Slint influenced, especially the sort of spoken word aspect of the vocals, the delivery. His vocals, although again, definitely Slint with the spoken word stuff, etc. Kind of Conor Obersty, I think, especially the sort of vocal crux. You know, instead of being like most spoken word type would sort of go, I look in her eyes, he'll go, I look in her eyes. You know, it's that sort of emo thing that Oberst sort of perfected with Bright Eyes. This is a really good album. The lyrics are good. The instrumentation is really nice. It's kind of like warm, jazzy, sort of brass sounds. Some dissonant guitar. The drummer's great. The drummer has to be good in all these types of bands. Again, it's a Slint thing. You just have to have a really good driving drummer. And also genuinely the mix on this thing is really really good. There's so many bands that when you start having like guitar in one ear and bass and drums and brass and vocals and whatever, it kind of either you overwhelm the vocals or it's not punchy enough. But no, this is kind of as good as it gets with this kind of stuff. Really good. Good album, would recommend. Next up in February we have Slowthai, Tyron. This album I didn't love, or didn't, I wouldn't say I didn't like it, but I kind of wasn't feeling it the first listen or so I had. I think I was really expecting some like, I mean, people who've listened to Slowthai before, he's mental. He's like a proper, you know, he's a bit scary. You'd back him in a bar fight, you know what I mean? He's a big sort of aggressive vocalist, and I 100% believe him when he's chatting his shit. Yeah, this album kind of grew on me. I didn't necessarily love it or I didn't massively like it the first time I heard it. I was kind of expecting like abrasive Slowthai, basically more of his early stuff, just really hard hitting, you know, abrasive delivery. Instead, we got this introspective, sort of a bit more laid back, a bit more thoughtful album, and it didn't necessarily click with me. Although I kind of came back to it later, kind of in the summer, and I kind of liked it a lot more. So it's probably his best work actually. Some of the production on this is really good. The bass on Vex, the drums on What, and man, just like, sorry, the drums on What are just really subtle, really really well produced. And Focus as well. Focus is so well made. That whole instrumental is just to die for. Like, I don't know who produced that, but yeah, good stuff. I think the lyrics can be a bit mixed with Slowthai, especially on this album. Like, you'll have these moments of you'll have these verses that are really sort of emotional, and he's talking about growing up and his own personal experiences and things like that. And then sometimes he'll use kind of a lazy simile or like a lazy bit of imagery, and it's a bit like, oh, kind of takes me out of the moment a bit. I think like he has the capability to make something really great. I just don't necessarily think it's sort of focused enough. Yeah, the lyrics I think can be a bit of a mixed bag. Sometimes you get these like amazing pieces of imagery where you can really picture like this, you know, dingy council house or the street, or, you know, you can really picture the people he's talking about. But then equally you can get kind of a lazy simile, you know, just kind of a, yeah, that'll do. So yeah, it's a bit mixed bag for me that way. So the first half of this album is more sort of like a bit more abrasive. Again, never as abrasive as his early stuff, but more sort of hard hitting. Whereas the second half of the album, which stylized as lowercase, is sort of meant to be more introspective, meant to be more sort of thoughtful. But yeah, just like, I think the second half works better than the first half. I think the first half, because it doesn't fully lean into how aggressive and how whatever he can be, it never really takes off, whereas the second half is a lot more. I don't know. I think like I'd almost have preferred if the album was just the second half. Obviously with a few more tracks, but just like a short introspective album rather than this kind of half and half. Because I think the first half's weaker. Yeah, definitely second half. Like I tried terms. NHS has some of his best verses, some of his best lyrics and stuff in it. My only other qualm with Slowthai is he absolutely has a formula for songwriting, and like once you notice it, it's so obvious. Like so many of the songs in this, it opens with the hook twice, and then a verse, and then the hook comes back in, but this time it's added a slight element, which like there's variation and so on. But what I'm getting at is the amount of times where you hear something, the first 30 seconds is the hook twice, and then he has a verse, and then the hook comes in again, but this time he's added like a slightly different, a hi-hat pattern or the bass line slightly different, but like it's very samey, and you kind of know exactly where the song's going to go. So that gets a bit thing. But yeah, no, this album was good. Would definitely recommend having a listen to it. And just Slowthai in general. I'm although I don't think this album hits the heights it could have, I think Slowthai is someone absolutely to watch. I think he, similar to artists like Tyler the Creator or JPEG Mafia, these are artists who are like kind of really coming into their own, and you've watched them grow from like, oh yeah, they're pretty good, to like, oh my god, you're hitting the highs that you sort of had the potential to. So I definitely think like Slowthai, this album mightn't be my favorite thing at all this year, but I think like there's a lot to come. Next up we have the Pretty Reckless Death by Rock and Roll. This is that proper old school guitar riffage, Guns N' Roses type stuff. I would definitely check this out if you're into stuff like Wolf Mother or like Peevrous Paris, ultimateguitar.com, looking up the tabs, type beat, if you really miss Guitar Hero. I was never massively into this kind of stuff. I was never really oh bro, but listen to the riff on that. So this wasn't necessarily the album for me, but we move. This was all right. It was all right. It was a bit overproduced, but I think a lot of this stuff is. I think there's a lot of this like sort of rocky. It's a bit clean, you know what I mean? There's kind of this rock sound that a lot of these bands have kind of moved to, and it's a bit like I don't know. There's no edge to me, but I don't know what you're expecting from an album called Death by Rock and Roll. Most of the lyrics are like, "I'm gonna rock you," type devil worship. I don't know, a bit childish almost. That's how it feels to me. I don't know if I think it's childish because I heard this stuff when I was like 10 and kind of massively grew out of it. I don't know if maybe people see it as that childish if you didn't start with rock music. Maybe if you started with hip hop, hip hop's the most popular genre now. Maybe they'll see some hip hop as childish, but I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. A couple of other things. 25 was a rejected James Bond hit. I don't think they confirmed that, but it's the same riff as James Bond. It's the same like chords. It's a James Bond theme, and the fact it's called 25 and the new movie, which is named No Time to Die, did it, which Billie Eilish ended up doing the theme for, but it's the 25th Bond movie, or the 25th since it's the 25th Bond movie. 25 is the name of the song. It's a Bond song, but it's a bit weird. I get why they include it in the album, but it's a bit strange because you kind of listen to like a fake soundtrack that it doesn't necessarily stand on its own, but I guess like if you've recorded it, you would want to release it, but I don't know. There's something about it a bit strange. Rock and Roll Heaven is a track that's basically like an Eagles impression. Tom Morello has a feature on this, and it was so disappointing. Like it was basically just a sort of knockoff Rage Against the Machine type riff, but it wasn't like particularly interesting. Like I was really excited for some proper Tom Morello stuff, for some just something, you know what I mean? But it was basically like you never ever would have went, oh, Tom Morello's on this. So yeah, that was a bit disappointing. But yeah, if you're into sort of riffage rock music, this is pretty tight. The vocals are really really good. So yeah, yeah, if you're into this stuff, I check it out. If not, it's probably give it a miss. So my Spanish isn't good. But last for February we have C Tangana, El Madrileño. Oh no, wait, it's not double L. El Madrileño. Yeah. But this thing is like a Spanish pop record with insane production. Like there's like synths in the first track which are absolutely gorgeous. There's incredible brass, and so it's kind of like Rosalia's album, which I can't remember the name of, but didn't that come out last year or the year before? And a lot of people were bigging this up. It was taking sort of Catalan influence with pop music, so you're getting these almost Max Martin, Britney Spears, or I guess like Timbaland type production with like flamenco guitar, with typical Spanish scales and stuff. And yeah, no, this thing is gorgeous, and I actually think I preferred this to Rosalia's album. Yeah, no, I think I do. Yeah, really, just a really good Spanish pop album. I'm gonna make sure I read these and butcher them, just for you. Comerte Enteras, that had really nice production on it. Te Olvidaste, it had really nice drums. Los Tontos, that's one I can say. It had those sort of flamenco, percussive hits and really nice drums. Just yeah, just throw this on, whenever you get a chance. Really nice stuff. So that's all of February. So on to March. So after butchering some Spanish, we have Pharaoh Sanders and Floating Points. I actually have this on vinyl. I'll show that in its glory. The pretty beautiful Floating Points with Pharoah Sanders, and the London Symphony Orchestra. Who could forget? This is another one where calling it an album feels a bit weird because it's marked as Promises, movement 1 to 5 and 6 till 9, I think, as side B. Yeah, and so really it's just one piece of music really that they've kind of split up. Yeah, when I read that Floating Points was doing a collaboration with Pharoah Sanders, I was a bit confused, I guess, because like I associate Floating Points as this electronic kind of ambient. I don't even know what you would call it. It's kind of very much like textural, but hearing that this young producer was going to be working with Pharoah Sanders, who worked with like John Coltrane and stuff. Like Sanders is one of the guys, like Miles Davis, Pharoah Sanders, John Coltrane, Sun Ra, that kind of name. And you hear that he's working with Floating Points, it was just sort of, it wasn't even like match made in heaven. It was just like, whoa, two people who are really talented working together. God knows when they were in the same room. God knows how this happened. I don't know if who approached who, or if they did approach each other, or. But yeah, no, this thing's amazing. It's really nice. It's basically all works around this sort of synthy padded chords that sort of repeat. Mainly Floating Points. Sam Shepard. He kind of just leaves him to play. He just gives him a space and just goes like, work away. Whereas he doesn't. It would have been tempting to add all this production and all these little effects and add, loads of little movements and arpeggios, but instead he basically just lets, Sanders do his thing, and he just adds a little space for him. And then near the end of the record, we get sort of the orchestra coming in and more sort of, more presence from Floating Points, more stuff that you would expect to hear from him. But yeah, just a stunning record. Again, would recommend massively. It's very minimalist. It's very subtle. It's not like a "oh look at me" type record. So if you go in with that attitude, it's probably not ideal. You could probably sort of not necessarily take from it. But just sit in a quiet room, Sunday morning, cup of coffee, stick on Promises. It's genuinely inspiring to me to see like people like this who were redefining music, who were so inspirational to modern music, decades ago, still working with like new faces and still experimenting and still seeking out like new talent. Like that's incredible to me. Genuine, like just makes it like should absolutely be taken into um consideration with the kind of legacy that these guys really had. I suppose actually, and on top of that, floating points. Again, it kind of depends who you approach to or how this came about, but floating points wanting to work with someone like Pharoah Sanders as well. I was gonna say take a risk, but maybe it's not that much of a risk. It's amazing to me when people want to experiment, even when they've got a sort of established legacy or an established sound and they still want to push the envelope. Those are the artists I really gravitate to. Next up in March, I've just got a single here. I've got a few singles on this list just to mix it up a bit. Aesop Rock's Long Legged Larry. This is genuinely one of the best singles I've heard this year. So the story goes that Aesop Rock has been teasing the idea that he wants to put a children's album out at some point, that he wants to basically just focus on writing music that kids would love. And he's put out like 3 or 4 songs in the last sort of 4 or 5 years that imply that this album's a real thing, but he apparently scrapped it. So I don't know if maybe these are like leftovers, or if maybe someday he'll put them all together, or maybe he'll just keep putting out these singles. Maybe a full album just felt like too daunting a task or didn't really work or whatever it was. So it's basically just like crunchy, great guitar, bluesy stuff. It's kind of, I don't know, Rolling Stones maybe is the kind of sound, mixed with some electronic piano and just like a really good old school drum loop. And it's just Aesop Rock singing this ridiculous song about a frog who can jump really high, like really, really high. Like he can jump over King Kong, which is pretty big. Yeah, just that's so fun. Such a great tune. Go Larry, go Larry, go, go, go. Just man, good tune. If you've got kids at home, or you've got younger siblings, or you've got younger cousins or nephews or whatever it is, and you want to get them into hip hop, I would use this tune. Hip hop. Larry's a frog. Hop. Next up, I've got For Those I Love, self-titled. So this was something I found quite recently, only about, I don't know, a few weeks ago. So this is like a Dubliner spoken word guy who makes kind of house music or pianoscape, soundscape stuff, and he does that sort of spoken word stuff. And it's mainly him talking about just growing up and just telling stories. It's kind of like the streets if he pronounced it the Stroits. On the Stroits. It's really weird for me listening to something like this because I listen to like American hip hop a lot. Most hip hop is American. And because of that, you get obviously the little skits, be it a voicemail, be that at the end of the track someone yo blah, 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 and just sort of conversations with their bros talking about driving around Compton. And it's so surreal to go from hearing that to hearing a guy with my accent go, I made Harp Bar's best bar in the world. The Myth is a really good tune. There's a moment on one of the tracks, I think it's You Live, is the name of it, where he, what do you call it? He says something like, and I hear you say, fire walk with me. And, that Twin Peaks reference was just cool enough that I'm like, this is a good album. And then as he says that, he's like, I heard you say, fire walk with me. The beat kicks in and that's a good, that's someone who's like, you could tell he was writing that being like, this is cool. And he's right, it's very cool. Not going to be in my top 10 of the year or anything, but like, yeah, it's pretty different. If you're into sort of storytelling, soundscapey stuff, or sort of house music with a bit of something different on it, I would say go for it, friend. Have a wee listen to this. Next I've got Jane Weaver, Flock. So this is like a like an experimental pop album. I think is what they named it, but I wouldn't even call it experimental. It's just like a really nice sort of blend of like PJ Harvey and like Kate Bush at times. Some of it sounds quite Tame Impala as well. Um, Stages of Phases is really Tame Impala. It's also quite Fiery Furnaces. Their album is a Bitter Tea. It's called the sort of pop record they put out near the end of their career. Some of the tracks are maybe a bit long, like some of the songs are just a bit drawn out, but definitely recommend. Really good album. I really liked Revolution of Supervisions. Modern Reputations is really good sonically. It's just really nice, really different. It's probably the most experimental track on the album. Flock's really nice as well. Yeah, just like again, if you're into sort of experimental pop, there's quite a lot of experimental pop stuff on this. But again, I wouldn't even call it. It's like experimental Brit pop. You know, it's not that weird. It's just a bit synthy and a bit. Some of the song structures are a bit out there, but like there's nothing particularly, off-putting. Not one of those experimental albums. Like there's experimental and there's experimental. Yeah, good album. If the names PJ Harvey and Kate Bush and stuff appeal to you, then I would definitely throw this on. And last but not least, I've got another butchering. Um, Maria Arnal y Marcel Bagés. Clamor, probably. This was another Spanish pop record, unlike Tangana's album, which was like a lot more pop heavy. It was closer to. Sometimes Tangana is like a better produced Enrique Iglesias. You know what I mean? It's proper pop. This album Clamor is like really good, like really good, like absolutely album of the year type stuff. Just like I knew when I was listening to it the first time, those like skittery drums that come in on Ventura. Like there's a track called like Cantor Sibilia or something, Sibilia. Um Again, I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. But music crosses boundaries that language does not have to, or something, whatever. It's like Eastern vocal arrangement. That remind again. I was talking about Caroline Shaw. It's like that level. Or even actually kind of some of the stuff you heard on Lingua Ignotas. Um, Sinner Get Ready that came out this year as well. Just these beautiful walls of vocals in a sort of Egyptian scale, sort of Eastern European. I'm assuming it's Spanish folk music, and the two are just obviously related, either by chance or historically. There's probably some crossover musically there. But yeah, I mean, it's like Bjork, it's like Spanish pop with like Autechre beats. It's honestly, this is like, I 100%, if I'm gonna recommend an album here, this is it. Absolutely go listen to this. This is 100% gonna be in my top 10 this year. It arguably might be my album of the year. It's really amazing.